Which NFL teams are the most overhyped and overrated? Welcome, football fans. In this video, my 6 most overrated NFL teams entering 2025. These teams are simply overhyped by the media, by fans, by the odds makers, by everybody. These teams do not deserve the attention they're getting. They do not deserve the love. Let's break it down. Gronk, spike the like button, and don't be a jabroni. Subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more awesome NFL offseason content, and let me know in the comments your pick for the most overrated team in the NFL entering this season. Let's kick it off with our first team on the list. Our first team on the list was a miracle conference championship team from a year ago. The Washington Commanders. Yes, I do not care. It sounds like I'm a Commander hater. I truly am not. I'm just being logical. The Commanders are currently getting the 6th best odds in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. They are team 6 to win the Super Bowl. Give me a break. Last year, this was a 12-win team that won 8 games by 1 score. I don't think that's going to happen again. I don't think this team is going to be that incredibly fortunate to win that many close games. I think this team is way too reliant on their second-year sophomore quarterback, Jayden Daniels. I like Jayden Daniels. He's a good player. But I just think this team is way too flawed to be and perform and play the way that they played last year and expect the same results. And I think that's what they're hoping for. I think that's what they're expecting. I don't see that happening. Why? They had the easiest schedule in the entire NFC last year. The easiest schedule. That's something that's not going to happen this year. That's not replicatable. I'm sorry. On top of that, okay, your defense has no pass rush whatsoever. None. You lost your leading sacker in Dante Fowler with 10.5 sacks. Nobody on this team can reliably get to the quarterback. That is a problem. Unless they go out there and trade for TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson or something crazy, this team will have a subpar, if not bad, pass rush. I don't care how much Dan Quinn schemes up. It's not going to happen. That is a problem. And on top of that, they sucked against the run last year, 28th in yards per attempt against the run. And what I hate the most is this team really believes they improved because they brought in a bunch of overrated players. Like Deebo Samuel, who I used to love Deebo Samuel. Don't get me wrong, huge fan of him at his peak. He's not at his peak anymore. If anything, he looks a little overweight and sluggish. Okay? Laramie Tunsil takes so many penalties. So many penalties. He is frustrating to watch at times. Does have great pass blocking skills and at times can be very good. But let's not pretend the Texans didn't trade him for a reason with how bad their offensive line was last year. Okay? And defensively, I just don't see how this team is any better than average. They were 21st in yards per drive allowed and 23rd in points per drive allowed. I just don't see how all these things come together again. I don't see how Jayden and Cliff dominate opponents week in, week out as regularly as they did when they were taking the league by surprise with both the quarterback and the scheme. That's what was special about the Commanders last year. They coached their booties off. They played excellent situational football. But situational football is very hard. Very hard. Unless you are all-time great as a coach and a quarterback. It's just really hard to replicate. And I don't think they have the talent on at least one side of the ball. So I think the Commanders are overrated. If you're putting them in that secure playoff lock conversation, if you think they're going to win their division, and if you think they can win the Super Bowl, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy for believing in the Commanders to that level, okay? So that's why they're overrated. The second team on the list is the Detroit Lions, and this one pains me. Because you guys know, I have a lot of Lions fans that support me, that are subscribed, that watch my videos. And I love those fans, and I love those subscribers, and I love the Lions fan base. But I have to be honest, okay? I think the Lions entering this year are going to take a step back. And it's pretty logical. I think when you look at a team that lost about 8 coaches on their coaching staff, pretty reasonably can take a step backwards. This team was 15-2 in the regular season. They were arguably the most dominant start-to-finish team in the NFL in the regular season. I believe they had, if not the best point differential, when you combine it between their strength of schedule and their point differential, it was the best in the NFL. So you look at all the coaches they lost. Ben Johnson being the biggest of the bunch, offensive coordinator, now head coach of the Chicago Bears. How does that impact the entire offense? The multiplicity of the run game, the coordination of play calling in terms of setting up plays. This run sets up that play action. This play early in the game sets up that screen, etc. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay-like magic, okay? And then on top of that, Jared Goff. How does that impact Jared Goff's rhythm, Jared Goff's consistency? We've seen him go throughout his career with, different systems, different coordinators, things like that. Will he be as good? Then you look at how will Amon-Ra continue to be utilized? How will Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs be utilized? So you're just talking about, I feel like losing that magical, mythical power of Ben Johnson calling plays is undoubtedly going to hurt this team in Detroit. Then you have Aaron Glenn, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but he did bring this defense to great levels last year, and they clearly played with an identity. That's what I appreciate about Aaron Glenn. He did also bring this defense to the best third down defense in the NFL, and that has something to do with coaching and preparation. So I give him credit for that. But will the Lions be able to adjust without Aaron Glenn's presence and leadership on that side of the ball? Because Dan Campbell, he's a great presence and leader, but he's not a defensive coach at heart. He's more of an offensive leaning coach because he was a former tight end. Then you talk about Terrell Williams, who is maybe the unsung coach on this staff on the defensive line. He has gone to New England. He's their defensive coordinator now under Mike Vrabel, where he was in Tennessee. That is a big loss. That is a big loss as well. When you lose a defensive line or offensive line coach, those guys are very important. Another important position is a tight end coach. They lost their tight end coach to the Jets, who's now going to coach the Jets offensive line, which kind of speaks to what Aaron Glenn thought of this guy. The tight end coach is responsible for coordinating that position in the pass and the run game, which is why it's one of those important positions that people don't talk about. For example, Brian Daboll used to be the tight end coach of the Patriots during their peak, okay? So that is an important position. They lost their pass game coordinator. Not only did they lose their offensive coordinator, they lost the guy that they would have replaced him with, who left for the Jets. They lost Antoine Randall L., responsible for development of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and these receivers. He's gone to the Bears. They lost J.T. Barrett as well, assistant quarterback coach, who's helping out with Jared Goff and his coordination. They lost their assistant defensive line coach, Cameron Davis. So they've lost their D-line coach, their assistant D-line coach, their OC, their pass game coordinator, their tight end coach. I mean, both coordinators. So this team just won't be as sharp, as detailed. And when you watched the Lions, that was the thing that stood out to me more than anything in recent seasons, was how well crafted this team was, especially offensively speaking. So that is going to be a big time adjustment. especially, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Dan Campbell, who, in my opinion, is not really known for his scheme. He's known for his presence. So losing the schemers is really going to hurt that guy. Not only that, but you lost a key fundamental part of your offense. Frank Ragnow just retired not too long ago. He's been one of the best centers in the NFL, and he's helped the Lions become one of the best power running teams in football. That's a big loss, okay? So, yeah, last year, they were awesome. They were dominant. But I don't know if you could put them 5th in Super Bowl odds, which is where they're being listed right now, right? It wouldn't be all that shocking for the Lions to take a logical step backwards, to not win their division potentially. And honestly, even if they do, I don't know if they're a true contender, because they still do feel like they have flaws on defense. And it feels like overall, last year kind of proved to me that was their year, and the things didn't go well and things kind of fell apart physically, injury-wise. And because of that, it kind of proved that a team with Jared Goff and this team kind of has to be perfect for the entire year and healthy for an entire season to actually get to where they want to go. Like, it feels like they need to be all the way healthy, all the way, everything's got to be clicking, or else this team could fall apart at any moment. So the Lions are a bit overrated. I'm not saying they won't be a good team or they won't make the playoffs. I even have picked them previously to win the division, but it does feel like they're a team that they're being listed as a contender, and I'm just not sure that they're ready because of all the change that they've had to endure this offseason. Next, the Los Angeles Chargers are overrated. Now, the thing with the Chargers is that they get a lot of hype from certain areas of the media, like our boy Colin Cowherd, who we constantly react to on this channel. Very entertaining stuff. But the problem with the Los Angeles Chargers is that last year they were overrated during the course of the season, and that showed up in the playoffs. Not only that, but the Los Angeles Chargers are one of those teams that everybody likes, everybody cheers for. Nobody really dislikes the Chargers. Maybe if you're a Broncos fan or you're a Raiders fan, but there aren't a lot of people that actually dislike the Chargers, which make them a very casual fan-driven type of team, which means that everybody's like, yeah, the Chargers will be good. Why not? They'll get better. Why not? It's year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. And there are certain things to look at with the Chargers and say, yeah, they could be better. Their offensive line is strengthened with Mekhi Becton. Their running back room with Najee Harris and Hampton. Their receiving room maybe could be better, right? Justin Herbert, year 2 with Greg Roman. Their defense is young. It could be on the rise. There's reasons to believe in the Chargers, but at the same time, people are already baking that in. Like, people are already saying the Chargers are going to be in the playoffs. Maybe they'll win 1 or 2 playoff games. Like, that's kind of the conversation the Chargers are in. They're not in the conversation of, like, spin it the other way. This team won 11 games last year, and they beat nobody. They beat no one. Not one good team. They lost to Houston by $1 billion, Kansas City twice, Tampa by $1 billion, Pittsburgh, Arizona, Baltimore. They lost to everybody worth a damn on their schedule. Other than Denver, who's in their own division, that's the only good team they beat, okay? And they also beat Cincinnati, barely. I don't even think they should have won that game, in all honesty. But this was a team that, despite being the best at not turning the ball over, the most basically protecting the football team in the NFL, they still couldn't upset anyone worth a damn, other than beat a 7 seed and the flawed Bengals with no defense. That was this team last year. So even with their improvements, are they really as good as we think? Are they really that lock of a playoff team? I'm not sure. Are they going to be better? Their D-line is flawed. They're not great up front. Their pass rush, meh. Like, I don't know. You're relying on old man Khalil Mack. Their cornerback group is young, but like not the best. I feel like their defense is just generally a bit overrated. Like they performed well in points against, but a lot of the other metrics you would see that they're a bit overrated, partly because of the schedule and things like that. And then offensively, they just don't have a lot of weapons. Like in the passing game, you're relying on a rookie to be your number 2. Ladd McConkey is obviously awesome, but everybody else is like meh. Like the tight end room, the depth of the receiver room. I just feel like the Chargers are just kind of like good and they're there, but I don't understand why people think they're going to beat the Chiefs in their division or like things like that. I feel like it's kind of crazy. So that's why the Chargers are on this list. The Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. I get their prediction right every year. That's right. The Miami Dolphins constantly perform well early in the year and drop off the face of the planet later in the season. Now, they are a team that has an 8.5 win total, and I would here to say that some people would think that's being underrated. I would say that 8.5 wins, Dolphins fans would be elated with 8 wins after next year. I think this team is in the makings of falling apart in Miami. They are fundamentally flawed at a culture level. Okay? Mike McDaniel has no control over this locker room. Jalen Ramsey wants to get traded, which might very well still happen. Tyreek Hill barely wants to be a Miami Dolphin half the time. His quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, is probably the most unreliable football player leading an NFL team right now. He's always injured. And they lost Teron Armstead to retirement. They honestly lost quite a few free agents like Javon Holland, Calais Campbell, Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Emmanuel Ogbah. A lot of players on defense specifically, which was actually the strength of their team last year. They were 10th in points against and top 5 in yards allowed. I don't see that happening again, not with Storm Duck at cornerback, especially if they lose Jalen Ramsey. And their safety position is not great either. They're starting Ashton Davis currently and Melon Fonwu, who was a 3rd or 4th safety on the Lions. So the magic of McDaniel seems to be wearing thin. The AFC East is changing and improving with a team like the Patriots on the rise. The Bills are the Bills. And the Dolphins just feel like an average at best team that is just not great in terms of their leadership, their consistency, their physicality. Their offensive line is bad. There's a lot of problems with this team. I just feel like people place them near the playoff conversation. I don't see it at all. I don't see it at all. Next, the Green Bay Packers. Overrated. The Green Bay Packers have a 9.5 win total. And I'm sorry, I like Packers fans too. I apologize. I didn't mean to do your theme song like that. But 9.5 win total seems about right, I guess. But this is the 10th best team in terms of Super Bowl odds. So they're viewed as a top 10 team and a top 10 threat, more importantly, to win the Super Bowl. They're actually ahead of teams like Tampa and Houston, which I don't necessarily agree with in terms of the potential to win the Super Bowl. And my problem with Green Bay, and the reason I think they're overrated, is I don't see a lot of special on this roster. I don't see a lot of elite or great. I see a lot of mid. I see a lot of good, capable, okay, but I don't see a lot of special. I don't see a lot of super, to put it another way, okay? And it speaks to their 2024 season as a whole. Just like the Chargers, they're the NFC version. They lost to every playoff team they played outside of an injured Houston Texans team that didn't even have Nico Collins. That's the only team they beat at home, okay? And they played a really easy schedule last year compared to what they'll face this year. Their division is obviously very strong with the Vikings who swept them, the Lions who swept them, by the way, and then they play the Bears, who have gotten a lot better, led by Ben Johnson, okay? And they played the AFC South last year, so that really helped them. This team just feels like they're good but not great. They have good weapons, but not great weapons. Plus, Christian Watson, arguably their most dangerous weapon the last couple of years, is out for probably half to most of the season. They have a talented but inconsistent quarterback. They have a good but not dominant offensive line. They have a very mid defense. Despite their rankings last year, they were not good at rushing the quarterback. They really sucked in that area. They were 17th in pass rush grade, and they were 26th in pass rush win rate as a team. Jair is gone too, so you don't have a CB1. You try to replace him with Nate Hobbs, but I'm not sure if that's going to get it done. I know that Alexander's been hurt a lot, but I just don't see this cornerback depth chart as intimidating. I think they were one of the worst teams in pass success rate allowed last year. They were actually in the bottom 3 or 4. Teams consistently could move the ball on them. It was more of a problem of EPA where, they would get some interceptions, some big plays thanks to guys like Xavier McKinney. And they do have talented defenders, don't get me wrong, young defenders that are on the rise, but the combination of lack of great corner play with a lack of a pass rush is a scary thought with an offense that's pretty inconsistent. They're good, they're explosive even, but they are kind of inconsistent against good teams. At least that's the way I would put it. So I don't know if they've really solved enough for them to take that next step. And given how difficult their schedule is, how they played against good teams last year, and how that might equate to a down season, I see the Packers being overrated right now. I would not rank them in the top 10 in the NFL entering 2025. And the final overrated team entering 2025, and this is going to surprise some people, I think, but it's kind of hard to not be overrated when people think you're going to repeat. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have an awesome roster. They were a great team last year. But there are plenty of reasons to believe that the Philadelphia Eagles will not be as good this year and will not live up to the favorite billing that they're getting right now. They are favored to repeat as Super Bowl champions. First of all, think about how difficult that is to do. The Chiefs did it, right? The Patriots have done it. But that was with Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady in the modern era. 2 of the best quarterbacks we've seen. For some people, the 2 best quarterbacks we've seen since 2000. Okay? Before that, we're talking about non-free agency driven teams. The Cowboys, the Niners, the Steelers, the Packers, teams like that. Even they had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Okay? Joe Montana, Troy Aikman. Okay? Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. Is he a Hall of Fame quarterback? Is a team that won the Super Bowl with the 32nd in the league in passing attempts. Are they going to be able to do that again? Are they going to be able to replicate that formula? It's simply impossible. They're going to have to throw more. They're going to have to be more Jalen Hurts reliant. Now without an elite coordinator and Kellen Moore, previously Shane Steichen, we've seen those dips in Jalen Hurts' game without those coordinators. Are we going to be able to rely on Saquon to be the best player in the NFL again? I love Saquon. He's one of my favorite players. But he does have the Madden curse set upon him this season. It's going to be difficult to take all those carries and replicate it again and play that formula again. This team was up and down throwing the ball last year. They finished well, but the regular season was not great. Simply look at Jalen Hurts' passing yards last season. Not great, okay? Can the defense repeat their number one performance? Vic Fangio's a great coordinator, and they have plenty of players young in their prime. I understand that. But they've also lost plenty of depth and plenty of playmakers. Milton Williams got a huge contract from the Patriots. Darius Slay, a commander-in-chief in the secondary, left for the Steelers. Josh Sweat got a big contract from the Cardinals. CJ Gardner-Johnson was an interception machine. We saw him previously leave the defense and how it fell off previously. He went to the Texans. And then even offensively, they lost Mekhi Becton, who was really important to their run game. I mean, just look at how they performed in the Super Bowl without Mekhi Becton running the ball. It wasn't great. And then you look at Isaiah Rodgers, Oren Burks, some key defensive depth players that they had on their roster as well. They're also gone to Cincinnati and to Minnesota. So I just feel like this depth of this roster, even if it's still maybe the best roster in the league, I don't know if it's like 100% because the Ravens are pretty damn good too. But the Eagles, I feel like still if you would give them that achievement and that crown and that billing, I feel like their roster is not as deep at edge or D-line or linebacker. Maybe not linebacker, but safety. They're relying on rookie play. Like corner, they don't have that same certainty at that position. Like it just feels like they're a little thinner. Offensive line, maybe even with Becton gone and Steen having to start instead of back up. Like there are more areas where it feels like an injury here or there would actually hinder this team. They didn't have a lot of injuries last year. So it's tough to repeat. It's tough to go through the gauntlet. It's tough to have the target on your back. The Eagles, the last time they reached the Super Bowl, they had a hangover. The last time they won the Super Bowl, they were still in the playoffs, but they clearly fell off. I think they went like 9-8 or something. So this Eagles team is stacked. But there are plenty of reasons to believe that they won't repeat or won't be even in the NFC Championship. And their schedule was also the second easiest in the NFL last year, in at least the NFC, but potentially the NFL. So that also allowed them to build up victories against bad teams to get the number 1 seed and play in Philly in the playoffs. What if they have to go through teams on the road? What if they have to go to the Rams this time instead of play them at home? How will that work out? So that's why the Eagles made this list. And I understand plenty of people are probably commenting, Mitch, where are the Chiefs? Sometimes I just don't feel like talking about the Chiefs. I'm sorry. If I had to lean either way, I would say they're overrated. But like, I think enough people talk about the Chiefs being overrated. Do I have to always talk about the Chiefs? I don't like talking about the Chiefs all the time. Gronk, spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni. Subscribe and let me know your opinion on the teams on my list. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.